Everyone, hope you're doing well. You know how I feel ahead of the game tomorrow. Not very confident, it has to be said, but we're going to find out what Lee thinks, the Nottingham Forest fan. So far, good season, but is it sustainable? Is it lucky? We're going to find out everything about Nottingham Forest today. Lee, from a neutral outside looking in, it's looking pretty impressive. What have you made of your season so far?
Yeah, way above what we expected. Certainly at this stage, if you look at the fixtures we had to start with, I think the fixtures were more favourable than they have been the other 2 years we've been in the Prem. But bizarrely, we've actually got results in the games that we just wrote off as bad jobs in the first 2 years for us. The away form's improved. The strength in depth is far more significant than it has been. And yeah, it's just been a stark contrast really for the other two seasons. I think after 9 games, we're already thinking about, looking at sort of a different block of the Premier League table rather than constantly worrying about the teams that are in the bottom 3 playing before us and will we slip in and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just been such a massive shift at this stage.
At pre-season, before we kicked the ball, what was your aims and expectations for Nottingham Forest?
I think because of how much of a basket case last season was, I mean, make no bones about it, we stayed up last year because the 3 that came up were horrifically bad. And I've got no problems with saying that. I think for a while, even with the points deduction and everything, I think Luton were adamant they were going to stay up. And the harsh reality for us is if Luton had done what we did in the first year in the Prem, we'd probably be a championship club now. And by that, I mean, basically sort their act together for probably 3 or 4 weeks at the end of the season, they'd have been fine. They needed a couple of wins and they'd have been absolutely fine because the pressure on us would have just been massive. So I think in pre-season for us, it was all about quality over quantity in the transfer market first and foremost, which, as I'm sure you're aware, hasn't always been the case at Forest. We've signed a lot of players since we came up, but that is improving. And I think it was just about really trying to finish top of that bottom clutch of clubs in the Premier League. But that was before a ball was kicked. Obviously, quickly into the season, things have changed. But yeah, I think in pre-season, a lot of fans would have still taken 17th again. I'll be honest with you. I think if we could have finished 16th like we did in the first season, I think lots would have seen it as progression because of how much of a basket case last season was with all the off-the-field stuff as well.
And what's your expectations now after such a good start? Are you getting your hopes up a little bit, or are you staying pretty grounded?
I mean, I've coined a bit of a phrase, and it's the easy way, the hard way, the Forest way. So I'm still not getting carried away. I think what is really satisfying is that we've had tough fixtures, particularly away. We've played Chelsea, we've played Brighton, we've played Liverpool, and we've not lost away yet. So there is something to take from that. I think if we can sort the home form out, we don't even need to sort it out that much. I think winning against Palace was massive to get that first home win. I think if we can just beat the teams we should be at home, I think, without being... I don't want that to sound like an arrogant comment from a fan of a club that's only been back in the Prem 3 years, but the teams like Palace are the ones that we've got to be targeting as wins at home, as were the games against Wolves and Bournemouth, which we didn't win. So, yeah, I think the expectation has shifted a little bit now. I think if we were to now finish 17th, I think it would be all this hard work over the first 9 games. I know that sounds really silly because it's the Premier League and it's brutal and we are going to lose games. But I think we can certainly, let's not run before we can walk, but I think we can certainly target finishing top of that bottom half. If not, if we can maintain this form for a little while longer, there's no reason why we can't look at a top 10 finish, to be fair.
What's the reason behind, pardon me, what's the reason behind a good start to life this season?
Well, Chris Wood still scoring. He's picked up where he left off last season. It's hard to overlook him as a major factor. I think the big summer signing was Nikola Milenković. To get him for 12 million, I mean, I've got to be honest, West Ham signed Kilman for, was it 40 million?
Yeah.
I've got to be honest, I don't understand why a club like West Ham didn't look at Milenković. 12 million quid. It's absolute daylight robbery. And the fact that we've managed to go out and get him, it basically sticks 2 fingers up to all the people that have slagged our recruitment off, because for us to put ourselves in a position, it's cliched, but if you don't buy a raffle ticket, you can't win the raffle. And I can't imagine Forest going to Fiorentina and ever thinking we'd, I think Forest kind of chanced their arm a little bit, and they've turned around and said, "Yeah, go on then. He's out of contract in a year. We'll sell him," and we've ended up getting him. We're gonna make significant profit on him. We're already kind of. I think Newcastle have watched him this season. I think Tottenham are interested in him. So we're not preparing to have him for a long time. But when the time does come to sell him, he's going to make us massive profit. And he's just been huge. I mean, last season, it was no secret that our defending from set pieces was dreadful. I think only Burnley conceded more goals from set pieces than us. And having someone like him, I'm not saying that he heads every set piece away now, because it's not like that. But you can just see that when a set piece goes against us, everything's kind of a little bit more organised. And I think he's kind of like a silent captain, if you like, because he's not the one wearing the armband, but he's always the one kind of choreographing everything at the back, if you like, when we get, when it comes to having to defend those situations. So, yeah, he's been a massive signing. And we've got Alex Moreno from Villa on loan, and just having a left-footed left-back, as daft as it sounds, just brings so much more balance to the defensive unit, which last season it was always a case of playing one of the two right-footed right-backs we've got on the left. So just little things like that have tweaked, and it's really worked.
Yeah, I mean, I think the frustrating thing as a West Ham fan is we did look at Milenković. We were linked to him for 2 or 3 years when we had David Moyes here, and we were consistently. And I think he was supposedly our number one centre back target a couple of seasons ago. And I'm trying to think who we opted for. And then that summer, I don't think it was a Kurt Zouma signing. I think it might have been we went and got Nath Gerd instead for 35 billion. Now, obviously, Fiorentina's negotiating power was stronger back then because he didn't have that 12 months to go on his contract. However, it was pretty clear back then that it was unlikely he was going to sign a new deal. So you could argue his contract was still running out. It's just that it had 2-3 years to go instead of just the one. But like you said, in the summer, you went and got him, and I was surprised we didn't move. But I think what that would suggest was that it was David Moyes that liked him rather than that West Ham liked him, if that makes sense. So now Moyes is gone. We don't need that, rip that transfer target up. And like you said, we went and spent 40 million on Max Kilman. And then we've gone in, basically, as long as we stay up, this deal goes through, we've basically just gone and signed Todibo for 40 million euros. So we've just forked out nearly 80 million on 2 different centre-backs. And like you said, Milenković has gone there for what seems like a handful of million in the Premier League this day and age. So I think he's been a fantastic signing for you, to be honest. I was confident he'd be a good signing too, and we also got a good look at him in Prague in a Conference League final. Granted, he was watching Jared Bowen run past him to notch the winner, but he looked good another 90 minutes there. In regards to your manager then with Nuno, I think when you dismissed Cooper, I feel like it was a big call, and it's one that you really had to get right, because if you got that appointment wrong, I think you were heading to the Championship, and you did just enough last season to stay up, I think, but this season is really taking off. And do you think you've got the right manager at the right time at Forest?
Yeah, I do. I think he got a lot of bad press last season because he replaced the man that got us back into the Premier League. And Cooper we'll always be indebted to Cooper for what he did. But things change, and Marinakis has got big ambitions. You can't knock him for that. And it was funny because people were saying, "Oh, first bad run and we've sacked him." It wasn't the first bad run at all. We were dreadful when that first season. We were dreadful. We just weren't ready for the Prem. We didn't have a team. And fair play to Cooper, he did manage to keep us up. The January signings that season helped, as well as a favourable run-in. But last season, I think we were looking at it after the Palace game, and I think around that time last season we beat Villa on a Sky. So I think it was a Sky game afternoon. Villa were awful that day, and we beat them. But then, and everyone said, right, we need to kick on now. And after that, I think we got 1 point in 7 games, and he got sacked. 1 point in 7 games in the Prem. Yeah. Very few managers are going to oversee that, I think. So, yeah, straight away the shift was evident. That straight away we played Bournemouth, and we got a really bad refereeing decision. I'm not going to be a Forest fan that just talks about refereeing decisions, though, because that's not what we're all like. But yeah, we lost to Bournemouth 3-2. That was his first game, and then we went to Newcastle and won on Boxing Day, and then we beat Man United 3 days later. So straight away there was a clear. I think Cooper could have helped himself if he had just stuck to his mentality of the Championship, which was, I'm going to make sure my team's involved in every game. We might not win every game, but we're going to have a go in every game. And in the Premier, just kind of he was scared to death to do anything. And funnily enough, we actually saw Steve Cooper at Forest in the Prem managing his Leicester team last week, because they were the better team in the first half last week. And we've all seen that film before from the away end, where you come back out in the second half and you think, right, we're on top, and then the other team scores and you just lose with a whimper. It was exactly what we did and it's the first time in the Prem last week when I've actually watched a game and thought, from the moment Chris Wood scored just after half time, I literally said, we will not get beat in this game tonight, because Cooper doesn't know how to get his teams back into games when that happens. It's always plucky, like when they went to Southampton and I think they were 2-0 down at half time and then they had a man sent off and then everything went towards Leicester. That's just Cooper all over in the Prem. It's kind of one drink in a beer garden doesn't make a summer with him. I think the time was right for him to go. Nuno wasn't a popular choice because we got linked with all these fancy managers. We got linked with Glasner. There was all sorts of unrealistic rumours as well at the time. And then from nowhere, Nuno, who happens to be a George Mendes client who's helped us in the past, rather unsuccessfully, it has to be said, comes on the radar. And everyone was a bit like, oh, Marinakis is listening to other people again. But to be fair to him, it was in our local news that he considered sacking him twice last year because our form was so bad. But I think he was adamant that he wanted to stay up and give him a full pre-season and then judge him on that. And thankfully, we're now reaping the rewards of that.
Right then, let's go from your team to my team. Before we do, if you'd like to hear and see more from Lee, you can check out the Red Side of the Trent podcast. I put all the links in the video description, so you can go and have a little look and see what they're saying ahead of the game and after the game as well, from a Forest perspective. But from a Forest perspective of West Ham, what do you make of our team?
I was very impressed.
What do you think?
I was very impressed with the transfer window you had. I think before a ball was kicked, if you'd asked me who'd done the best business, I'd probably say West Ham. I think you added, much like Forest to be fair, I think you added positions that you needed. And bizarrely, much like Forest, you probably kind of didn't quite get the centre forward that your style of play needs. I think Fulkrug was always going to be a bit of a risk. I sense that was a signing based on what he did in the Euros. And obviously because he's injured and that sort of stuff now, I know that there's some sort of reservations already about him. So, yeah, I was quite impressed. The signing of Somerville was very good. He was a player I'd have 100% had at Forest. The issue we had is that we've got two pretty good wingers in Hudson-Odoi and Elanga. So you'd be signing him as a backup. You're not going to spend 25, 30 million on a backup, not as a club in our position anyway. But yeah, he's a very good signing. Jared Bowen's a great player. You look at the 1-11 that West Ham could potentially play tomorrow, and you're essentially playing a team that should really be finished. Anything, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong as a West Ham fan, but anything outside the top 8 has to be deemed as an unsuccessful season with that squad, I would say.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are a little bit reserved because obviously it's Lopetegui come in, and you know how you're speaking about the reaction to Nuno. I think there was a similar reaction to Lopetegui from West Ham fans, that it felt a little bit quick and cheap, replacing David Moyes. Whereas, again, like yourselves, we were linked to maybe more fancy names, and Ruben Amorim being one of them. Now he's off to Man United, and that's, you know, the reports have come back again that he was willing to come to West Ham, that we just don't want to pay the compensation required to get him and his team over and stuff like that. So it's not been great. In terms of the squad, I personally wouldn't say top 8, but I do think we've got a chance of top 8. You know, if everything goes in your favour, you get a little bit of luck, because you do need it. I don't care what people say. I think when you're Arsenal, you don't need luck to finish in top 4, but you might need it to go on and win the Premier League. But when you're like West Ham or Brighton, even Newcastle, I think you need a little bit of something just to go in your favour that gets you into the top end. And I would suggest we've had some at the weekend against Man United with a penalty call, that VAR call. I'd suggest that is lucky, that we got that penalty call, because on another day you don't get that. And you need moments like that to go with you over the course of a season that can then make a significant difference come May. And it's a bit like when you're a promoted side, you need a little bit of it to go in your favour in order just to remain in the Premier League. I think sometimes you feel like everything goes against you when you're down at the bottom of the Premier League, but I do think sometimes you just need something to fall your way, and whether it be Nottingham Forest getting a points deduction. I'm pretty sure Luton fans were sitting there thinking, oh, come on, now we've got a chance now when it's got nothing to do with them. That was what you did, but that's a little bit of luck in your favour. I'm intrigued to see what you answer here, right? Don't think, I need to. Just give me your honest answer. You're not going to sound arrogant, I promise you. You just said at the start of the video that you finished 17th. You'd been okay with that, right? You've already lowered the bar. Who's going to finish higher, West Ham or Nottingham Forest?
Oh, that's a good question. Right now?
Yeah.
At this moment in time, taking everything into consideration, I think Forest will finish higher than West Ham. Because, and I'll tell you why, it's nothing to do with, you make a really good point there. I'm there saying your squad's really good, but I'm still not entirely convinced you've got the right manager for that group of players. The reason I asked right now is because I don't anticipate if that form that you're currently in continues, you'll keep the same manager. I think you'll pull the plug before he's even had. I think Moyes got such a long time that the next appointment had to be successful. And I think if things carry on, because Lopetegui's style is not overly exciting, is it usually? And I think if that carries on, if it doesn't and he sorts it out, you'll be fine anyway. And I also say that because I think you might have a little bit more flexibility in the January market as well, where you can maybe, let's say Fulkrug, it stays out for a little bit and you end up going and getting a striker. We'll probably be in the market for a striker. If you say to a striker on the continent somewhere, do you want to go to West Ham? Do you want to go to Forest? They'll probably choose West Ham. Living in London, nice, shiny new stadium. They'll probably choose West Ham. So you might have the edge in terms of getting that better piece of quality in January. But I'd say right now, I think we're probably in a good position to finish higher than West Ham.
Don't worry. I think there's going to be a lot of West Ham fans listening right now going, I agree, to be fair. I'm inclined to agree with you as well, Lee. I think Nottingham Forest will finish above us at the moment. Listen, when we do this video for the reverse fixture, we might have a different opinion, but right now it's hard to suggest to be West Ham. And I think that's it's half and half, really. It's sort of credit to Nottingham Forest. Look how far you've come and look how well you're doing this season. But it's also like criticism of West Ham, which is look how bad you've done this season as well. This is how far expectations and hope have fallen since 9 games ago before a ball was even kicked. In regards to Saturday itself, then, how do you see this game going?
Well, I think it'll be a tough game for us. I think we're sweating on 3 or 4 fitness doubts, although I think he's named 3 or 4 of them just to kind of plant some seed, a bit of psychology that the managers do. Cooper was a master of that, incidentally. He'd rule someone out for 3 weeks and then they'd play on Saturday. Nuno's not quite as cute with it, but I do anticipate that I think Anderson will be fit. I think Gibbs White might make the squad, but I don't think he'll start just purely because Anderson's playing so well. I think I'm pleased we beat Crystal Palace going into this game because I think if we'd still not won at home going into games against West Ham and Newcastle, you're kind of thinking they're pretty tough games to be needing that first home win. So that monkey's off the back now, and I think we can kind of hopefully we'll see a bit more of a settled performance at home. Everything's been a bit rushed so far this season at home, a bit disjointed, a bit panicky, which has been a stark contrast to us on the road because we've been so fluent on the road. So I think it'll be a good game. I think I tend to do this a lot on our podcast, but I think it might be a draw again. I think I've predicted a draw for pretty much all of our own games this season. I've just got a feeling it might be one of those sort of games where there's not much in it, maybe like a 0-0 or a 1-1. I think West Ham might come and potentially play for a point, not in a horrible, really negative sort of way. I just think they'll understand the importance of not getting beat. Obviously, if Forest do beat West Ham this weekend, we'll go maybe 10. West Ham got 9 points.
I couldn't tell you, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so I think West Ham's they got 9 or they got 11. They might have 11. So
I think it's 11. I think it was 8. I think it was 8.
Yeah, you beat West Ham.
8 and then we beat Man U. So yeah, it's 11.
11. So if we win, we'll go. I'm trying to think. 16, 19. Yeah, we'll go 8 points ahead of you. I think at this stage of the season, that's 3 games that before you can get in front of us again. So it'd be a massive psychological advantage if we could go a little bit higher in the Premier League and the international breaks on the horizon. It'd be nice to guarantee that we won't slip into that bottom half before the break again. So yeah, I think the incentive's probably there for us, maybe more so than it is for West Ham. I think West Ham would probably take a point right now, whereas I think we'll probably view it as a game that we'd like to try and get 3 points in.
Yeah, I think the one thing I will say is I think the way that we play will allow you to play like it's an away game, and that makes sense. The way that you go about, you don't mind sitting in Nottingham Forest and playing counter-attacking football, and which makes sense given your personnel. And I think the way that West Ham play, we get our fullbacks really high as well, which gives you space to play behind us. And teams have exploited that over the last few weeks. And I think you might as well. I think you will be able to play like you were playing at the London Stadium, if that one makes sense. But anyway, Lee, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure. I think you'll be in quite a good season. And maybe next time when we catch up, you might be able to start dreaming of getting your dusting off your passport for next season.
Don't. I'll get all excited.
You should do it, though. It's important in football. Always allow yourself to get excited. Always allow yourself to dream. We did our preview yesterday, and we've had quite a few Nottingham Forest fans commenting on the video. And there's been some that are very humble. You know, 12th to 14th, I think we'll finish round about there, which I agree with. I think if I was to predict where Forest would finish, it would be somewhere maybe 11th, 12th, 13th or something. But there has been one or two since. I'm starting to think we could maybe get a European spot. And you know what? I love it. I absolutely love that, because for every time a West Ham, a Brighton, an Aston Villa, even a Nottingham Forest, if we can just nick a European spot, it means one of the six ain't getting it. I enjoy it when that happens. I like seeing teams just taking those spots away from them and then use it as a way of, building, getting better players and getting the money and becoming stronger for it and causing problems for the Premier League Cartel 6. So I hope when we catch up next time, I hope we're both dreaming of European football. But yeah, I think it's important to be able to have hope. If you don't have hope, what's the point? If you can't dream of European football and silverware, what's the point?
What I would say is the key month for us is coming up. It's December. Our December is absolutely minging. And the nice thing is that we're not going to be going into that December thinking, oh my God, where's our next point coming from? Because we would have been last year. Whereas this year we've got 4 games before December, 3 at home, 1 away. The away game's Arsenal, so I'm not expecting much there. But the December is absolutely awful. We play like City and United away. We play Tottenham. We play Everton. We play Brentford. I think Villa's thrown in there for good measure. So that will be at the end of December when the Old Lang Syne's being sung for the new year. I think then we'll have a really clear idea of what sort of season we're going to have.
Well, best of luck with it, Lee, and thank you very much. You guys at home have enjoyed it. Please drop a like on the video by clicking thumbs up, subscribing to Hammers Chat, and all the links for Lee's social media as well as the podcast are in the description below, so go and check them out too, and we will catch you in a bit.